Yeah, we got your guy now. You want to bring on KC for us since
Yeah,
he's your guy? Yeah.
yeah, he's a longtime Bulls writer, previously of the Chicago Tribune. You can check him out on Twitter, KCJ Hoop. He's also with the Chicago Sports Network right now. Let's bring in Casey Johnson. Casey, what's up, man? You're on with Drapes and Whitey here on the Drive Guys.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, hey, Casey, I don't know if there's a bigger fan of Zach LaVine than me, but if there is, it's probably you. Just tell me about the guy we're getting here in Sacramento, and what was your reaction to the trade?
Well, the trade was a long time coming. Obviously, he'd been in rumors almost seemingly from the moment he signed a max contract in Chicago. And, you know, I know how much he cares for the city and this organization. But I watched his introductory press conference, and also, you know, he emphasized it's nice to be a place where you're wanted. And at one point, he was that, obviously, in Chicago. They gave him a max contract, but he just kind of seemed to become the target here and kind of being blamed for all the woes that you know befit this organization over his tenure here. So it's a fresh start for both sides. And look, he's playing at an extremely high level this season. I know he didn't get off to the greatest start last night, but his shooting splits are, you know, sublime, and he's, you know, back to that all-star offensive efficiency that we saw prior to his foot injury last season.
KC, we appreciate your time. I think you came on with us during the summer, whenever it was you came on, and we talked about Zach LaVine with you. That was very educational. And I'm wondering if you can educate us on this now. There's a narrative being thrown around these parts, and I'm wondering if it's maybe being thrown around a little too cavalierly, and that's the notion that with the Bulls, DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine didn't fit together. Because I know that first year together, they won 46 games. They were both all-stars. They seem like they're very happy to be playing together. To what extent is there any truth to that narrative that the two of them didn't quite fit together on the floor with the Bulls?
Well, I'll say this. I think they fit with the right pieces around them. And I know that sounds a little cliche-ish, but I mean, their best stint together was when Lonzo Ball was healthy that first half of 21-22. And we all know Lonzo Ball is arguably one of the best connecting pieces in the NBA. Without Lonzo Ball and without really any true point guard, although Kobe White played very well at that position last year before moving to off the ball this year with Josh Giddey's arrival, they had mixed results. And look, those two guys really, really like each other, and they have a ton of mutual professional respect for each other. But there are times where without an elite point guard, they do struggle to impact winning. And I'm not saying it's all the time. And I think, again, with the right pieces around them, they can achieve success. They're both obviously extremely talented players. But I think that narrative is out there for a little bit of a reason. And that's I kind of just detailed what I see in that regard.
Thank you.
Hey, Casey, obviously you're well connected out there in Chicago and tied in behind the scenes. And, you know, I did a few games of play-by-play for the Chicago Bulls a few years ago. This was, you know, when they fired Hoiberg, brought in Boylan, and then Billy Donovan. Can you just speak to how LaVine has navigated his time in Chicago? I talked to Wendell Carter Jr. yesterday. He called Zach LaVine a leader. Did you see that from Zach at all, or is that just, you know, people gassing him up? Give it to me the real.
No, I mean, so I'm glad you brought up all the different coaches he played for. You can take that back to Minnesota. I mean, he's really never had a lot of stability in his career. I mean, he obviously was drafted into a rebuilding Minnesota franchise, and then obviously came over in the huge Jimmy Butler trade in 2017 to Chicago, and again was entering a rebuilding phase. And coach, he's just had a revolving door of coaches. And I've always pushed back on the narrative that, like, you know, Zach LaVine isn't a winner or can't play winning basketball. I mean, talk to Greg Popovich and Steve Kerr about him from that Olympic team, and obviously that's a star-studded team. But Zach LaVine was a role player on that team. He picked guys up full court defensively, was a spot starter, and, you know, fourth or fifth offensive option. And Steve Kerr, who was an assistant on the team, told me many times like how great his role acceptance was. So you put him around good players, he's going to play winning basketball. He's unselfish, even though he's an elite scorer. He makes the right decisions, et cetera. As far as his leadership, that waxed and waned too again, but that largely was circumstantial to what the Bulls were enduring. The young players, as you mentioned, Wendell Carter Jr. being one of them, always looked up to him. And I would say this season was like the best version of Zach we've ever seen. The dude is just totally at peace. He's obviously got a growing family and a new perspective. He's talked openly about how parenthood has changed him. And this season, man, not only was he playing at such a high level on the court, off the court, he was just such a joy for his teammates to be around, media to be around. He just emanated peace and acceptance of where his standing is in the league. So I expect him to keep being on the ascent in Sacramento, because that's what I saw in his last half season here.
Checking in here with Casey Johnson from CHSN Bulls Insider. You mentioned Zach LaVine. You mentioned his defense a little bit. We talked to Stacey King a few days ago, and he said that Zach has been actually guarding up this year and guarding larger players a lot, and he struggled with that last night against Franz Wagner, which is no surprise. But I want to ask you, Casey, how much room for improvement is there? The Kings really struggle defensively, and with his athleticism, does he have the potential to be a better defender?
Well, Zach has always been very honest and open about his defense, and I will second what he always says, because I've heard him say it a million times. On the ball, he can be really, really, really good. He definitely sometimes struggles with off-ball rotations and just, quite frankly, losing focus at times when he's in the off-ball or weak side situations. You also have to balance that with how much of a load he carried here offensively. So he probably got a little bit of a pass there defensively because he had such an offensive burden for this franchise. And then also, we all know how this league works. A good offense, particularly in this day and age, is always going to beat lockdown defense. It's just the way the league has trended, the way the league is. But to your point, his acceptance of always kind of, hey, I got Donovan Mitchell tonight, or I got Jason Tatum tonight. I mean, he really kind of leaned into that this season, and that is another example of kind of his maturation and his growth that I saw. And yeah, I mean, sometimes he wasn't great. I mean, that's just the way the league is now. Offense is going to beat defense, but he was at least out there competing and trying and doing what he could to help his team win.
Hey, Casey, you got our guy Kevin Huerter. What's the future for him out there in Chicago, you think?
I mean, we just talked to Arturas Karnisovas post-trade deadline. He held his availability and talked about the three players acquired. Obviously, two came from San Antonio, and Zach Collins and Trey Jones. Huerter, obviously, he points to his career three-point shooting number rather than this season's three-point shooting number. So you guys would know better than me what happened there. I caught a couple Kings games before this trade. I'm going to catch more now because of Zach. And it just seems like he's just not as confident as a shooter. I don't know. You guys would have better intel on that than me. Called him a versatile wing, positional size. So, he's signed through next year, and the Bulls take a lot of three-pointers. So I think they give him a spin and see what they got from him over the coming weeks.
Yeah, the confidence did look like that was the biggest issue with him, Casey. Before we let you go, I know you've been in Chicago a long time. What's your best guess at how Jimmy Butler works out with the Warriors?
Well, the big thing there, is that Mike Dunleavy was his teammate for 3 years. So Mike Dunleavy doesn't make that trade unless he's assured it's going to work. And obviously Steve Kerr is elite at handling star personalities. Look, Jimmy doesn't really care about much of anything other than winning. And that's kind of the mindset that a Draymond Green has. That's certainly the mindset Stephen Curry has. So I do think there'll be some spacing issues at times, probably. I would have preferred, from a basketball standpoint, maybe them getting a stretch five, although that two-way kid from Denmark, that I'm forgetting his name, Post, he can shoot it,
Quentin
man.
Post, yeah.
Yeah. He killed the Bulls when we were just out there a couple weeks ago. So maybe they have higher hopes for him and designs for him. But look, Jimmy, you let Jimmy be Jimmy. He's going to deliver for you, particularly come playoff time. And like I said, the Dunleavy-Butler connection is really critical to me from my standpoint for this working moving forward.
KC, we appreciate it. Listen, you got to come out, Sac, and watch Zach LaVine play. We'll put you up at Drapes, and he'll, be your private chauffeur for your whole time here, and we'll just have a great time. How about it?
Well, I will be at that game, but I'm going to decline all that other stuff because I like to roll on my own. But thanks for the honor.
Ouch, that hurts, Casey. Oh, man. All right, I see how it is.
Thanks, Casey.
I'll see you out there, guys. Thanks for having me.
Right. We appreciate it. When we come back, are the Kings now on the hunt for their next franchise player? That's next. We got Drapes in Portland. Drive Guy, Sactown.